General Trollbane, Taliesin and Evitel reporting for duty.
Yeah, just point us in the direction of the Horde and we'll drive them back out of Arathi for good.
What? What are you doing here?
We heard the Horde were attacking Stromgarde and we came to lend our swords.
Yeah, for the Alliance and all that.
Oh, don't worry, we've got the situation completely under control. You should just head back home.
What do you mean? The Horde war machine is in full flow. They've been gathering resources for the war effort all week.
Resources?
Yeah, like a cloth and herbs and I think there was...
Oh, those 3 ring enchants?
Oh shit, yeah, the ring enchants, and not to mention all the meaty haunches and coarse leather bardings.
Yeah, we have no idea what they're planning, but it sounds really messed up, to be honest.
Cloth, eh? That does sound serious, but I'm sure it's nothing we can't handle. You've already helped us out loads by killing all those rares last week. We can take it from here.
Yeah, but they're like coming this way with all their resources, and it's not like we've got anything better to do.
Yeah, this whole faction war is kind of why we're here, isn't it?
Thanks, but you run along now. I'm sure you have some world quests to do or something. We'll call you if we need you. Maybe in a couple of weeks or so.
In fairness, Evitel, I do have some world quests to do. Let's go.
This seems like a bad idea.
Oh, come on, he's right. We did kill all those rares last week. How bad could it be?
Knowledge is power.
Hello Internet and welcome back to another weekly reset, Taliesin and Evitel's Wondrous Wisdomshow. And first up, sorry there was no other video this week since our last episode. That's because we've been on guild holiday, catching some rays in Greece with some of our favourite people and generally just enjoying all of the week's events from a safe distance, which turns out was just as well because holy shit have we got some things to talk about this week. There's a Mythic Uldir race which is so very nearly over that will almost certainly be over by the time you watch this. There's some very interesting data mining involving the future of Warfronts, and indeed a sneak peek at an upcoming content update even before BlizzCon though, and of course there's Ian's Reddit AMA, which will give us a chance to hear, as we go along, his take on the really fun stuff this week. But the thing is, I just don't know where to begin on this really fun stuff. Like, do I begin with the Mythic Plus cash item fun or the Horde Warfronts fun? I honestly can't decide. I tried to toss the most rubbish coin I could possibly find to help me choose, but it landed in a steaming pile of toxic excrement, so I couldn't see what side it landed on. So okay, fine, let's talk about the Mythic Plus cash, because I guess it technically happened first. And so just to be clear right from the start here, when I say Mythic Plus cash fun, I definitely don't mean the Mythic Plus cash fun we had last week, where people were getting up to eye level 400 gear in their BfA chest, even though they hadn't done a single Mythic Plus the week before, because they couldn't have done, because BfA Mythic Plus wasn't out yet. No, that's a totally different Mythic Plus cash fun to this week's Mythic Cash Plus fun, which if anything is even more fun. Okay, so in the BfA beta for a while, your weekly Mythic Plus cash would give you between 1 and 3 items based on the highest key that you had completed the previous week, which is notable because that's 3 times more than your Legion chest gave you. Based on this, a lot of, well, pretty much all WoW news sites and other content creators reported that players would be receiving up to 3 items in their weekly chest. But when players excitedly opened their chests for the first time this week, I mean for the proper first time, not for the broken first time like the week before, absolutely no one got up to 3 items because everyone only got 1 item because it turns out the chest only award 1 item, just like in Legion. GG. Blizzard have since put out a blue post saying that this was intended and that the 1 item reward was actually also implemented on the beta before it ended and BfA began. And of course, they never actually came out and said that there would be up to 3 items in the weekly chest in the first place, a point that was made repeatedly on the forums, where any talk of the game developers possibly misleading the player base were quickly corrected with the facts, and there were many illuminating and surprisingly eloquent reflections on how this was really more of a story about how WoW is reported on, how maybe it was the content creators who could have been a bit more careful in this instance, something that appeared to be the case from beta rather than stating it as absolute fact. And you know what? With that self-reflection came a new understanding from the player base on exactly the kind of pressures and unrealistic expectations that we, the so-called fans, sometimes place on the very things that we claim to know. It was a shit show, obviously. Cash lies! What garbage. For real, Blizz, you dicked up again by not saying this anywhere. I don't mean to sound like a fish, but this is the straw that broke my camel's back. I'm not going to be resubbing. So there's a couple of issues at play here. Firstly, did Blizzard mislead the player base with regards to how many items would be in their weekly chest? Well, it was certainly up to 3 for at least a few weeks on beta, and if it was reverted to 1 before it went live, as Blizzard claim it was, then certainly nobody noticed it. Does Blizzard have an obligation to officially clarify every change they make on beta? No, of course not, especially when the end result of that change is that the system hasn't actually changed from Legion. There has been some discussion on how Ian said in a Q&A that they would be increasing the rewards from Mythic Plus caches, but on investigation, that's not really true, because this is what he actually said.
All the endgame sources of Azerite Armor are from sources that are gated by some lockouts, and not just endlessly spammable. So raids, by definition, you can only kill a raid boss once a week. In PvP, it'll come from Conquest rewards or from your weekly chest there, and from Mythic Plus, it'll come from your weekly chest. And we are planning on being significantly more generous than we are with regular items when it comes to these.
He's pretty clearly saying that they want to be more generous with rewards from lots of different sources. He's not highlighting the Mythic Plus weekly chest as a specific example. I can see why people may have taken it that way, but it's not what he said. So is it creators' fault for reporting the 3 items as fact when it was never officially confirmed? Well, not really. They were just going by what they'd seen on beta. So yeah, maybe there's a lesson there in how we present unconfirmed details like that. Something it's easy for us to say because, and I might be wrong here, but I did a quick flick through the last week's episodes and I don't think I'm wrong. We never actually reported the up to 3 thing on this channel, maybe because we didn't quite believe it. And why we didn't quite believe it leads us to what I think is the most important point about this whole issue. Is it better for the chests to reward 1 or 3 pieces of loot? And in my opinion, the rewarding of 1 item is clearly the most sensible option. Mythic Plus and the loot it rewards changed the game in Legion with the sheer, pure item farming power they enabled. A power which totally broke the first raid, Emerald Nightmare. And that was with weekly chests dropping 1 item. And with that in mind, up to 3 could be totally insane. So whether or not you think Blizz could have communicated it better, maybe, but I believe the correct call was made with the system itself. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Taliesin, you brown-nosed shill fanboy shill, you're forgetting Azerite Armor, and how you can only get that in the weekly chest from Mythic Plus, and only having 1 item in the cache makes Mythic Plus a totally useless way to farm Azerite Armor. And it turns out that, well, that's not quite true either. As Ian revealed in the Reddit AMA, an Azerite Armor piece still has exactly the same chance to appear in your weekly chest as it did when there were up to 3 items in beta. And furthermore, as an added bonus, Azerite Armor has bad luck protection connected to it, so every week you don't get 1 in your chest will make it more likely that you'll get 1 the next week. Now, it does remain true, Mythic Plus is not the best way to farm Azerite Armor. This, though, is kind of intended, and from a purely personal point of view, I think it's a good thing. It means raiding and Mythic Plus have different gearing patterns. Dungeons are still the best way to mass farm pretty much every other gear slot. Raiding is the best way to get the highest level Azerite Armor, which makes sense. You couldn't get tier pieces in your weekly chest at all in Legion, and that was 4 slots as opposed to Azerite's 3. Not to mention weapons, Mythic Plus is actually a better way to get gear now than it was in Legion. Demanding efficient and predictable Azerite Armor farming from it too would be bad for the game, and also just a little bit greedy, to be honest, in my opinion. So with that said, let's flip over our poo-stained coin and address the other super fun talking point of the week, Warfronts. Because almost 7 whole days ago now, Horde finally accessed their Warfront scenario after a few days of bar filling, and we, the expectant world, could experience one of the flagship features of Battle for Azeroth. I mean, you know, half of them could. The Alliance had to sit this one out and wait for their turn in a couple of weeks, with not even any reset Arathi rares or world boss to farm in the meantime. Something which you'd think might invite accusations of faction bias, and you'd be right, because players were not happy about this clear bias towards one side. So on fire! GG Blizz for yet another badly thought out and even worse implemented system. It causes gear imbalance the week raids open. It's really kind of friggin' stupid if you consider the details. Alliance get a quest for top end gear, Horde don't. Alliance will have an item level gear advantage by the time Horde get to try for their first items. Basically, War Mode just got a big boost to Alliance players and the Horde can go suck an egg. Oh wait, sorry, sorry, we've really messed up here. Sorry, these aren't the comments from this week, our bad. No, these are the comments from last week when Warfronts first started up and Alliance got the quests and World Boss and Arathi, and obviously that was also a case of terrible favoritism which broke the game, but it's not this week's terrible favoritism which broke the game. No, sorry, here are this week's comments. Cancelled subscription due to Blizzard Horde bias Warfronts. Warfront. Oh yeah, that's more like it. This goes beyond anything I can remember in terms of discrimination and unfairness. I really hope they made a mistake. Please God, let it be a shitting mistake. Rubbish X-Pack and rubbish way to treat Alliance players. You whole game is worse than WoD. Nothing you can do or say will save POS X-Pack. You carry on making funnies and posting in silly threads and ignoring the real issues, yeah. Now, as you know, we are not huge fans of Warfronts on this channel, but let's see if we can put aside our own bias here and try to get to the bottom of what's actually happening, because something, somewhere, is clearly very wrong. But what exactly? Well, let's start with the loot. Completing your very first Warfront allows you to hand in a quest for a guaranteed 370 piece of gear, which is rather lovely. And every time you complete a Warfront, which you can chain to your instance limit every hour of the day if you like, then you will receive a piece of 340 gear, which of course, if it's not Azerite, can Warforge and Titanforge as normal. The absolute biggest problem though, is that when they first went live, there was no item level requirement to enter a Warfront, which meant that any newly dinged max level character could hop in and receive all of that nice 340 gear, whilst also, by the way, being a bit useless in the Warfront because they were undergeared, but that doesn't matter because famously, you have to really try to actually lose a Warfront. Whatever Blizzard's intentions behind Warfront's rewards, it probably wasn't to allow fresh 120s to bypass normal, heroic, and to an extent Mythic 0 dungeons in a few hours play. It is clearly not working as intended, and in fact was hotfixed after a couple of days to demand an item level of 320 to enter the scenario, which is clearly exactly what it should have been from the start. But of course now there are genuine questions about fairness, because Horde characters had a good couple of days gearing before that hotfix, which fresh Alliance 120s simply won't get when they have their turn. On top of that, there are accusations that even now Warfront's obsolete dungeon content and act as essentially welfare gear. And then Ian had his say on the AMA, and basically there's so much going on here and so much anger and frustration to wade through that we're gonna have to take it one point at a time. So 1, faction unfairness with regards to gear. Has the Alliance been unfairly shafted here? Well, let's ask instead, who's benefited? Because as far as I can see, there are 2 types of character that will benefit most from this gear. Your average player's ults, or an incredibly casual main. And if your main is benefiting massively from farming Warfront gear, that means you are not raiding normal mode Uldir, and you're not running anything above +1 mythic keystones, in which case, awesome! I'm really happy for you that you get this nice source of gear that, who knows, might even be enough of a boost to encourage you to try raiding and Mythic Plus. Honestly, it doesn't affect me. No one is going to come close to outgearing my main just by running Warfronts, because really it's not even as efficient way to gear as people are making out. I ran 6 on a Horde character, just scraping 320. In my 3rd and 4th runs, I got duplicate legs. In my 5th and 6th runs, I got duplicate gloves, and then I decided, you know what, I've had fun, but that's honestly enough Warfronts for me. I think I'll go and try and get into some Mythic Plus groups instead, which obviously I couldn't because I'm a shaman, but that's a whole different story. And the same applies to ults. Yes, so for a couple of days, fresh 120s got to bypass a few hours worth of play before the minimum eye level entry requirement fix, but honestly, who cares? Are you upset at genuine unfairness here, or are you upset at the principle of unfairness? Because I've heard people, actual real-life respected content creators, subtly suggest that Warfronts are the reason there are so many Horde guilds in the top 10 for Mythic Uldir progression, as if the last over 4 years of raids had never happened, which isn't just hilariously wrong and blinkered, it's actually a bit dishonest. Because in reality, it's not going to make any difference to anything. And as for the idea of it being welfare gear, get out with that shit. Base 340 Warfront gear, which doesn't include trinkets or rings by the way, is about as useful as actual welfare, as in it'll stop you starving, but it's still low-end stuff. And if someone getting 1 free piece of 370 gear a month upsets you, then you don't hate the game, you hate people. And anyway, you get that free 370 too. There is equality in this welfare, you scrub. So for me, the gear issue with Warfronts is a red herring, as I think we'll see in a month or so when both factions have had a couple of turns and we all realise this was a whole lot of nonsense over nothing. But I do think there's a discussion to be had on the overall merit of Warfronts as gameplay content, because as you know, we are not traditionally big fans of Warfronts on this channel, and I think this week has shown a lot of why we hold that opinion. Ian admitted in the AMA that Blizzard's communication on what they are and how they work and what they involve has been bad, and it has been from as far back as they were announced in BlizzCon in my opinion. Is it true though that, as suggested, that they obsolete other forms of content? Possibly, although the only other form of content they can ever really possibly replace is Mythic 0 dungeons. The 320 requirement means that you'll still be progressing through normal and heroic dungeons exactly as before, and yes, you can grind Warfronts as a more efficient way of gearing than Mythic 0, but only if you don't mind not upgrading your rings and trinkets, and only if you happen to hit 320 on the 1 week a month that your Warfront will actually be open. For 3 out of 4 weeks, Mythic 0 is still your only option, and I think that's something people are totally ignoring. And any Mythic Plus dungeon is going to give you better base gear than a Warfront, so basically what we're saying is 1 week a month it will suck to be a Mythic 0 dungeon, which honestly I don't think really obsoletes vast swathes of content. And lastly, most importantly of all, are Warfronts fun? Are they good content? But I don't want to give an opinion on whether the time gating aspect is fun yet, whether the Horde having a turn and the Alliance having a turn works as a gameplay mechanic, because we haven't had a complete cycle yet to judge it by. But my overall opinion of what I have played is, yeah, they are pretty fun actually. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Taliesin, you shill brown-nosed, shill lying, shill bribed, shill man, even you have said that you don't think Warfronts are very good. And that's absolutely true. I have said that. And furthermore, the reasons I gave months ago as to why I didn't really like them, they're far too easy and uninvolved, you can't lose, they could be so much more, all of that is still totally true, and I was proven right. And God, you know how much I love being right. And yet, I cannot lie to you, I still had fun in Warfronts, and I'll tell you why I think that was. Because I treated them as you are supposed to treat them. I went in, I played through my first Warfront. I enjoyed it, not as a team game, but essentially a really good single-player PvE event. Having hordes of soldiers taking points and after about 10 minutes storming the gates of Stromgarde is fun the first few times. It's certainly spectacular, it's pretty exciting, and if it was the climax of a zone questline, it would be one of the best things Blizzard had ever done, and I enjoyed it. And because I enjoyed it, I did it again for more gear, and it was still pretty fun. And I liked the gear, no lie. And then I ran it a third time, and it started to get a bit old, so I did not run it again. Until a little bit later, where I randomly quite fancied it. So I ran a couple more, and I still quite enjoyed it. I went some places I hadn't bothered with before, and I focused on getting cool stuff to ride. And then after my overall 5th attempt, I stopped because I was getting duplicate gear now, and F that. And then this morning, I quite fancied it again randomly, so I did another. All in all, I've run the Warfronts 6 times, which is maybe 2 hours of content, and I have to say, I enjoyed pretty much all of them, and honestly, that's enough. And the thing is, that's meant to be enough. And this is part of a wider issue in the game at the moment. This is the reason people are setting themselves alight over every little thing, why they are review bombing BfA on Metacritic and calling it the worst expansion ever, and why so many of us are standing here a little bit confused because we're actually having a really good time. And the problem, I think, is this. Blizzard tells you how to play this game. Makes it pretty obvious actually. World quests are there for low level gear when you ding max and to build up rep which you'll need for Champions of Azeroth if you want to level up your necklace and your war campaign faction if you want the new allied races. But honestly, that's it. The only rewards for bopping that shit really hard and getting exalted right now is recipes and your Pathfinder for a slight mount speed increase. And if you have bopped it and you've got all that rep, then it's okay that you don't need to do world quests anymore. Blizz want you to be able to move on to other content. Ian has explicitly said that in Q&As. Same with island expeditions. I find them really fun and I look forward to doing them because I only do 4 a week on each character. Blizzard shows me that's all I need to do to keep up with Azerite power, and they've been right so far. So once a week I team up with a couple of buddies and spend an hour or two chatting shit on the new in-game voice comms, which by the way are brilliant, and have a really good time. I raid twice a week and I run Mythic Plus, and those are my favourite things to do, but these are things to do in between that, in small doses, as variety for diminishing return rewards to show me that I shouldn't do too much of them, and Warfronts is a fun addition to those other things. So now once a month I can take part in a big battle a few times and see what loot I get from it. And yeah, with any of these things, if I was to just sit down and properly grind them, if I cleared the map of world quests every day or ran endless islands back to back or spend 3 days solid chaining Warfronts, then obviously I wouldn't have fun, and Blizzard know that, which is why they say, hey, just fill this Azerite bar with islands once a week. Don't bother with world quests when you're done with them. We're not even going to let you into Warfronts most of the time, and all this is fine. You can grind it all if you want to be cutting edge, but when has being cutting edge in this game ever involved not having to do a massive grind that the average player would hate? I'm playing this game as they are suggesting, and as a result, with those 3 gameplay features and the bare minimum PvP and a bit of stress-free alt leveling, I enjoy my time in between raids and Mythic Plus more than I did in Legion, and I really liked Legion. Okay, so many players still have fundamental issues with the idea of Azerite Armor and with class balance, but those are separate issues which we'll cover in another video because this is already far too long for a news item. But my takeaway is this: 1 item from Mythic Plus Weekly Chest is better than 3, and as things stand, I enjoyed my time in Warfronts, and I look forward to doing them again next month, a few times.
Mythic Plus and Warfronts weren't the only things Ian covered in the AMA. He also talked island expedition rewards, there'll be a higher drop rate on pets and mounts starting now, the lack of account-wide reputations, admitting that Champions of Azeroth feels bad to have to grind out on every character, but stopping short of saying that they were planning to change it. Thanks, I guess? Apologizing for Fetid Devourer being overtuned and saying it was down to their raid testing team being just so darn good at the game, which is like the most humble brag apology it's possible to make. Responding to a question about time gating with the pretty sound reasoning that since WoW is a subscription-based game, they don't really give a shit about your time playing metrics as long as you're having enough fun to keep paying your subscription, which makes total sense even though no one believes it. There was some talk about sanguicels and professions, which was cute because he actually managed to keep a straight face as if anyone actually does professions. There's the promise of more new and hopefully a bit more interesting Azerite traits in future tiers, and some tuning of the traits we already have. And perhaps most importantly, class balance, because there's still a lot of very sad shaman out there who really need some comforting. And when I say comforting, what I really mean is some big fat juicy numbers all up in their abilities, obviously. I always know when Tali is playing a shaman because I hear faint sobbing coming from the office, unlike when he's playing his disc priest and it's all evil laughter and shouts of "I'm indestructible" as he ganks some fools. The thing is, there are a couple of classes out in the cold right now, with shaman being a prime example, and that's bad, but I really like the principle behind what Ian says they're trying to do here, of classes having more unique niches and uses that make them more individual, of having a reason for wanting to take a certain class in a certain situation. That's a noble aim, and in the case of Shaman, it's clearly not happening. In PvE, at least. But if future tuning could make it happen, then that would be pretty rad, and something worth aiming for. Otherwise, seriously, just give them some bigger numbers. It'll be fine. All of the questions featured in the AMA and Ian's answers are presented in full in one handy-to-read Wowhead article, which we will of course be linking below. Oh, and actually the class tuning isn't even the most important part. The most important bit of the whole AMA was 8.1! On Tuesday, a developer livestream will detail the content in a new patch, which will be hitting the PTR soon. Here it is, guys. 8.1 is here! Oh wait, hang on.
So yeah, maybe there's a lesson there in how we present unconfirmed details like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry, we don't know what will be in the patch yet, and in all likelihood, it won't be all that major, and yeah, okay, maybe 8.1 was a bit of a stretch. It's more likely 8.0 point something, and okay, fine, lots of you will be watching this on Wednesday after the live stream and will know exactly what was in it already, but damn it, I'm gonna go ahead and speculate what's in the patch because speculation is fun. Okay, so first off, obviously, is allied races. Story-wise, there's absolutely no reason why we wouldn't be able to play as Zandalari trolls or Cool Tier Inhumans right now. We're all pretty much best buds at this point. I mean, I single-handedly saved their lives and kingdoms, so it's no surprise they like me. And I would imagine that these two new playable races are a dead cert to be revealed on Tuesday. And hopefully with that reveal, we'll get some other details, like what classes they can play, what new made-up reputation we have to grind to unlock them, and most importantly, the confirmation we all need that the Cool Tier's Heritage Armor is the long-awaited long coat that we all have waited so long for. What else? Well, how about some new islands to expedition on? Sounds likely. And how about a new warfront? Yes, I know we only just got our first warfront, but there was recently that revelation that we may have some interesting new ones on their way. Reddit user TopherAU discovered an in-game script command that, when used, prints the following lines in your chat box. Barrens Warfront. Attack the southern barons and break through the great gates of Mulgore. Silvermoon Warfront. Assault the final Horde bastion on the eastern kingdoms and cleanse our land of their filth. Azshara Warfront. Launch a massive naval assault on the home of Gallywix. Bilgewater will burn. So, Wow, okay. Is this what it seems? Because this seems like it's telling us exactly what the next 3 Warfronts will be, and that they will all be alliance attacks on Horde locations. The Barrens location is one we've all kind of known about for a while, although it's interesting that the aim is to break through to Mulgore itself, especially since Anduin and Bane are like Horn brothers or whatever. But Azshara? Isn't that a bit close to Orgrimmar? Wouldn't that be the ideal place to launch a siege of Orgrimmar? Oh, sorry, just had some deja vu. But for many of us, the most exciting prospect is Silvermoon, partly because it would represent the first Burning Crusade locations to get any sort of revamp at all. And if you're going to give anywhere a shiny HD update, then yes, please, let's do Silvermoon, please, that would be great. Apart from being able to rebuild the Blood Elf capital outside of the BC coding prison it's been stuck in for the last decade, oh god, maybe we'd even be able to fly there. I also really like the idea of Anduin marching his forces up the Dreadscar, and yet another epic Arthas moment, and hearing the in-game sass talk between Lorthamar and Illyria. That would be legit. So I guess the question is, are these real plans, or are they just very old code that represents placeholders or scrapped ideas? If I'm honest, it seems likely to be the latter, unfortunately, and I'd be surprised if either Silvermoon or Azshara saw the light of day. But hey, maybe the live stream will prove me totally wrong. The story potential and how important these locations are certainly far too tantalizing not to think about. And hey, the Mythic race is probably over by now. And by the way, how awesome are the Method live streams? Like, I wasn't expecting to like it, but I actually really like it. The fact that their voices are muted is actually really relaxing. It's just the sounds of the raid, underscored by the same 2004 House and Trance compilation that the raid team apparently share. And it's actually really nice. So how about a mini raid, like a cool Buon Samedi themed thing? Maybe the final boss can be all Shadow Priests, and we can finally put them out of their misery this expansion. Or you know what? Maybe I've got this all wrong, and actually they are going to announce 8.1 after all. It would actually kind of make sense. 7.1 was famously revealed before Legion even went live, and 2 months on the PTR could mean a late November release, which I think most people would predict. And if it is 8.1, what could that mean? Azshara? A whole new raid or zone like Najatar? A new dungeon? And if it is 8.1, what are they going to reveal at BlizzCon? I cannot wait to find out. And unfortunately, all this talk of AMAs and future patch reveals have pushed out a lot of the stuff we wanted to talk about this week. So we're going to point you to some more articles in the description, some things we think you'll find interesting, like the interesting interaction that the puzzle box of Yogg-Sarontoy has with Zekvaz, comprehensive hotfix details, and Wowhead's excellent guide explaining exactly what the Uldir origination array is, why it's on your gear, and what it does. Admit it, you need that guide because you have no idea what I just said, do you?
Also, before I forget, how could I forget? I need to thank Jesse from the Lost Codex. Because I know what you've been thinking. You've been thinking since the start of that episode, who is the voice of Trollbane in the opening skit? He's funny and charming and wise and sexy. And you're right, Jess from the Lost Codex is all of those things. And he recorded that voice of Trollbane in like literally 5 minutes. We sent him an email probably about 5 minutes before you're watching this and asked him to record the lines. And he bloody well did.
He did.
Okay, I just want to say, well done.
Thanks.
Because you managed to say actual words just then,
I
and and they went in the microphone,
Thanks.
and I think the microphone could just about hear them.
I think so. I hope it picked them up.
Because Evitel is really quite ill, aren't you?
I'm better now. I'm just at the I'm better now.
You sound quite sexy, actually.
I know, I was
you
going to
sound
say.
like an old jazz singer or something.
Yeah, it's like I've been smoking 50 cigarettes a day.
Oh, say something sexy.
Something sexy.
Say Mythic plus 10.
Mythic plus 10.
Oh my god, I love it so much.
And I didn't ruin your key.
If only I could believe that. Please, internet, don't feel sorry for Evitel, because the reason she's ill is she just partied too hard on Guildhall Day.
No, actually, I got sick
you're right.
the day before.
You got sick the day before, which is why you did no partying on Guildhall Day. And I'm definitely not going to undermine that by showing any photos of you. Everyone will see from the photos of you on Guildhall Day right now
I look so
how sick you are and how unfun you were having. You were having no fun on Guildhall Day at all. That's probably also why this video is so... I talked for... Because you couldn't talk.
So
I talked forever on this video, and I'm really sorry about that, guys, but there was some stuff that needed to be said.
There was
because
stuff.
apparently... this is something that has passed me by completely. BfA is a dumpster fire.
Apparently.
Like, it's like dead in the water.
Doesn't it have like a 4% Metacritic
Something
rating?
like that. It's bombed. It's the death of WoW. Like,
Apparently,
genuinely.
I missed
And like,
this.
do you know what? I'm not saying anyone is wrong for saying that. They can say whatever their opinion is. That's absolutely fine. But I find it a bit confusing because I'm actually really enjoying the game.
Yeah, it is confusing.
Like, I know I've been away all week, but me and the guild were all of us were like, it's great being here, hanging out with you guys, and like being on these literal pristine beaches, which we have to take boats to get to, and stuff like that, and with the bluest water I've ever seen.
Literally the bluest water, possible.
But I'd really love to be playing WoW right now. And we all felt like that. And
we all felt that a bit.
That's not how you feel about a game which is a dumpster fire and which is rubbish.
No.
Like, I mean, like, we want to play the game because it's fun.
I mean, one thing I didn't like coming back to was my Champions of Azeroth rep, which I just cannot be bothered.
Really?
I just cannot. I cannot. I know I have to.
Don't you want that
do it.
sweet plus 50
I
level
do. I
there?
do. But I just, that bit really makes me go no. But otherwise,
it's like 4 world quests a day.
I
Maybe.
know, but they're all over the map, and I have to get there, and they're always Horde players trying to gank me because I always have war mode on. But it's, that's the
See,
only
when you get angry
thing.
about ganking, you have no trouble talking at all. There are issues which people have, and I am sympathetic to those issues. But whatever issues may or may not exist in BfA, it's definitely not spoiling my fun. But it meant that we couldn't talk about the BlizzCon virtual ticket, which is like expensive, like $50 more or
That's
something.
a lot of money.
Yeah, something like that. I admit I haven't even looked at it. Because we're going to BlizzCon and we're going to get a virtual ticket with it anyway. So actually, when I saw that news, I was like, I'll look at that news later. And then I didn't. We'll link a Wowhead article to it in the description. Oh, Wowhead, saving the weekly reset since 2018. Our next video will probably be something about the announcement on Tuesday. Cannot wait to see what that is. Do you know what I'm secretly hoping for? But which I know that we won't get.
What?
I'm secretly hoping for some kind of a cinematic. Some kind of a teaser cinematic.
Well, there's some stuff. There have been rumors floating around.
Haven't there?
There have been lots of rumors floating around. So
exciting. Join us for that, and join us for the next episode of the Weekly Reset. If you enjoyed this episode of the Weekly Reset, don't thank us. Thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make these videos happen, because without them, they wouldn't happen, would they?
nope,
What was that?
I'd probably be dead.
I can't understand what you're saying. Let's get you to bed. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, we are the Lost Codex. This week we kind of are.
We kind of are, actually.
No, from me, Taliesin.
And me, Evitel.
Oh, we made it.
Yeah.
Until next time. Cheerio.
Bye.